File 03. The Whitechapel Negative. Metropolitan Police. H Division, London. November 1888. Villing van Noagister. The document you are about to hear was reconstructed from materials held under sealed cover at the Public Record Office. Q. Transferred from the Whitechapel Division of the Metropolitan Police in 1957. It is catalogued as Case M 1888-441 and bears, in red ink, the single annotation, closed by hand of D.I. Bromwell, no further inquiry to be conducted. The autumn of that year is well remembered. There were other crimes in Whitechapel which drew the attention of the press, of the Crown, and of the world. M 1888-441 is not among them. It involves no figure famous to history, no street whose name has been preserved by sensational pamphlet, and no perpetrator who has been named then or since. It involves a tenement room, a photographer, 3 glass plates, and a 4th which Scotland Yard refused, on the photographer's own written instruction, to develop. This is what could be recovered. I, the photographer, Detective Inspector Edmund Bromwell, was 41 years old in November of 1888. He had served 7 years in H Division and was by then the division's principal forensic photographer, a post which existed in Britain only because of a Prussian advisory paper that had circulated among senior officers in 1881. The Crown distrusted the new science. Juries distrusted the new science. Bromwell, his superiors wrote, was a man of methodical habit, indifferent to gore, who has no reputation for imagination. It was meant as a compliment. On the night of the 7th of November, Bromwell was summoned to a tenement on Hanbury Street, 2 doors from a public house called the Black Hart. The constable on the door, a man named Tompkins, would not meet his eye. He said only, "Top floor, sir? Back room? Mind the stairs." The stairs were narrow and damp. Bromwell, who had attended a great many such buildings that autumn, noted in his field log that he had begun to find the smell of Whitechapel, coal smoke, river fog, boiled bone from the soapworks, almost a comfort. He was wrong about that, he later wrote in the same log. He was wrong about it that night. Aye. The room, from the field log, the 7th of November, 10 past 2 in the morning, top landing, 3rd door. Door already open. Constable Tompkins, waiting at the head of the stair, refused to enter the room with me. I attended alone. The room measures approximately 10 feet by 12. 1 window, shuttered. 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 washstand, 1 stove. The deceased, female, between 30 and 35 years of age. Identified by Tompkins as the lessee of the room. 1 Margaret Halloran, a charwoman of Irish birth. Position of the body, kneeling, upright, hands folded, facing the corner of the room opposite the door. Eyes open, no wounds, no disturbance. Stove cold. Teacup on the washstand, half drunk, no longer steaming. The room was undisturbed. The body had not fallen. In the corner of the room, in the position the deceased was facing, sat a small wooden doll, perhaps a foot in height, in a dress that had once been red. She was not made in England. The wood was very pale. Her eyes were of a dark glass. I will photograph the room before any further action is taken. In the margin, Bromwell has written, Tompkins says the door was bolted from within. The bolt is still in its closed position, although the door now stands open. He cannot account for this. Neither can I. Thar 3, the plates. Bromwell exposed 3 plates that night. The first he exposed at the doorway, looking into the room. The bed, the kneeling figure of Margaret Halloran, the doll in the corner. The second he exposed at the corner, a close study of the deceased. The third he exposed at the doll at a measured distance of 3 feet. He returned to the division's photographic room before sunrise and developed the plates himself. He did not wait for an assistant. The plates dried on a wooden rack while he wrote his preliminary report. He took up the first plate at 4:30 in the morning. He held it to the safe light. He held it for a long time without speaking. He wrote in a hand that the file's later examiners describe as noticeably altered. In the photograph, the doll is not in the corner. She is by the bed. In the photograph of the corner, where the doll should be, the corner is empty. The wallpaper behind the corner is intact. There is no figure there. In the photograph of the doll, taken at 3 feet, she fills the frame. I do not understand the focal length. I exposed at 3 feet. The plate appears to have been exposed at 6 inches. Her face is too close. Her face was not that close. IV. The fourth plate. Bromwell did not sleep that night, nor the night following. On the 9th of November, he wrote a memorandum to his superintendent, Inspector Charles Riley, requesting that the doll itself be removed to the division's evidence locker and held under seal. The request was granted on the same day. Riley, who appears in subsequent correspondence to have been a patient man, attached no comment. On the 10th of November, Bromwell exposed a fourth plate. He did so privately, at the division's photographic room, with the doll placed against a plain gray backdrop. He did not develop the plate. He sealed it, unprocessed, in a tin envelope, and wrote across the front of it, "Do not develop, by order of D.I. Bromwell. The instruction stands after my decease. The envelope is held with the file. It has not been opened. V. Constable Tompkins, Constable Henry Tompkins, the officer on the door of the Hanbury Street tenement, did not return to duty after the night of the 7th. His superintendent records him as having taken to his bed with a fever brought on by the night air. The division surgeon attended on the 8th. The fever was not pronounced, but Tompkins had begun to refuse light. He kept the curtains drawn. He kept his eyes closed. He spoke very little, and when he did speak, the surgeon recorded the following exchange. I asked him whether he had been into the room. He said, I did not enter the room. I asked him whether he had seen the body. He said, I did not see the body. I asked him what he had seen then. He said, I saw her in the corner. I saw her turn. I asked him whom he meant. He did not answer. He had begun to weep. I left him to the care of his wife. Tompkins died on the 23rd of November, of no cause the surgeon could determine. His wife reported that in the final week he had asked, repeatedly, that the photograph of his daughter, kept on the mantel in their parlor, be turned to the wall. She did not understand why. She did so to comfort him. After his death, when she removed the photograph to clean the frame, she found that the daughter, who was alive and well and at school in Stepney, was no longer alone in it. There was a second figure in the photograph, behind the child's chair, very small, partially in shadow. Mrs. Tompkins burned the photograph that evening in the parlor grate. She did not tell her daughter. She wrote to her sister in Bristol that same night, and the letter is the only reason the matter is recorded. V.I. Bromwell, Inspector Edmund Bromwell, continued to serve in H Division for one further year. He did not photograph another scene. He requested in writing to be released from photographic duties, and the request was granted without remark. He resigned his commission in November of 1889 and removed to a cottage in Kent where he lived alone with a housekeeper. His housekeeper, a Mrs. Pell, kept his rooms in good order and reported, in correspondence with his sister, that the inspector had taken to certain habits. He would not enter a room he had not first seen reflected in the long mirror at the end of the hallway. He would not have his portrait taken, nor would he sit for a sketch. He had removed every photograph from the cottage, including the two of his late wife, and burned them in the kitchen stove on his second night in residence. He kept, in the locked drawer of his writing desk, a single small object wrapped in oiled cloth. Mrs. Pell never saw it. She knew of it only because, on a number of occasions, she heard him speaking to it in the small hours of the morning, in a tone she described as a man making excuses to a creditor. He died in his sleep on the 8th of February, 1893. The cottage was let to a new tenant in the spring. The desk was opened. The wrapped object was no longer in the drawer. 7. The evidence locker. The doll, recorded in the division's evidence ledger as item M441A, was returned to the locker on the 9th of November, 1888, signed in by Inspector Riley, and was not removed during Bromwell's lifetime. In April of 1893, 2 months after Bromwell's death in Kent, the division conducted a routine reconciliation of its evidence inventory. Item M441A was found to be missing. The lock on the cabinet had not been forced. The seal on the cabinet door was intact. The ledger had not been altered. There was no record of withdrawal. Inspector Riley, by then in his last months of service, made a single line of entry on the 8th of May. Item M441A. Disposition unknown. Riley. He retired in the summer of that year and is not known to have spoken of the matter again. E8E. The fourth plate. continued. The unprocessed fourth plate, sealed in its tin envelope on the 10th of November, 1888, was retained with the file. It was transferred, unopened, to Scotland Yard's Central Archive in 1903, to the Public Record Office in 1957, and to its present sealed cover thereafter. In 1971, a doctoral candidate from University College London, conducting research on early forensic photography, applied for permission to examine the plate non-invasively, by means of low-light infrared imaging which would not require breaking the envelope. Permission was granted, the test was conducted, and the resulting infrared image was filed with the case. The image shows a figure. The figure is seated against a plain gray backdrop. The figure is not the doll. The figure is a man photographed from the front in late Victorian dress. He is holding a glass plate up to his face, as if reading it. He has been tentatively identified as Detective Inspector Edmund Bromwell. He had been dead for 78 years. The doctoral candidate did not complete her thesis. She returned the materials to the archive in person, signed the chain of custody, and sent a letter to her supervisor that same evening declining to continue the project. The letter does not give a reason. It contains only one sentence after the formal closing. There is something in the photograph which is looking back. The seal on the envelope was repaired in 1972 and has not been disturbed since. The infrared print is held with the file. It has been marked "Do not reproduce." Item M441A. The doll has been catalogued as missing for 133 years. She has not been recovered. She has, however, been observed. This concludes File 03.